Yes, we coming in hot this morning right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people, located at 2101 South Main Street in the city of Little Rock in the state of Arkansas, 72206. You might need that address if you're trying to send us some of your resources so that we can continue to stay live on the air. It is because of you and only because of you, through your financial donations, through the way that you show up in community, through the way that you show up right here on this station, that we are able to be here, for you to be able to turn your dial all the way to the left and hear us bringing you all that we can in music, in talk, in radio, and all kinds of things, so that you can be informed, so that you can be educated, so that you can be mobilized, so that you can be inspired, so that you can be motivated. That's what we do right here at KABF 88.3 FM. You are listening to The Workplace. I am your guest host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise. The music should have been your signal that something different was happening this morning. Toney is out of the studio working on whatever he's working on, doing whatever he is doing. I'm sure he will share that information with you the next time he is on the air. But I am sitting in for him rolling solo this morning. So thank you so much for joining us. We greet you. I greet you in the spirit of Salbona. That spirit that reminds us that we are one. There is nothing that you can do about the fact that we are human together. We got to figure out how to make this thing work, because so far it is not working, ain't been working, ain't never worked. We got to figure out how to make it work. So thank you for joining us. The phone lines are absolutely open at 501-433-0088, 501-433-0088. We would like to hear all of your comments. Every voice is welcome in this space, so that you can help us move this conversation forward that is rooted in Tyrese singing the song Shame. That was Tyrese singing the song Shame. Tyrese, no doubt about it, is in a relationship, and in a heterosexual relationship as it stands with this, in this particular case, even though I believe love is love and you can love whoever you want to love, because I want everybody to be free. So whatever freedom looks like to you, whatever liberation looks like to you, I say do it. As long as you don't harm another human in the process. And so he's having a conversation with his partner, and he's basically confessing. This is a confessional song, because he realizes that when he decided to step out on her, when he decided to cheat on her, when he decided to be unfaithful, when he decided to practice infidelity, he probably thought that he was not going to get caught. That's probably what he thought. But when he got caught, then he realized that he did not want the relationship to end. So now he's coming back to her, trying to figure out how they can reconcile, how they can work through this, if it's possible. And so for him, he knows in his mind, in his body, that the number one way to reconciliation is to own up to what I've done. I need to hold myself accountable, and I need to be public with you. I need to say it out loud that I know that I was wrong. I know what I did wrong. I know that you did not deserve it. And so he's here talking about how ashamed he is, ashamed of himself, ashamed of his behavior, ashamed of his betrayal, ashamed of all of the things that he has done to injure his partner, because of what he decided in the moment was a good thing to do. And so I think that that is, for me, I wanted to choose this song to help us ground our conversation in the setup. That's if I had to give this conversation a title, I would call it the setup, because the situation that he's in. Well, I don't want to. I wanted to tell you what's going on with Tyrese in the context of the song, but I also want to lift it up out of the song and think about it through the lens of social justice. There's so many lenses that we can apply to the issues that we face. It is important that we do that. Sometimes we need to look at things through the eyes of racism. Sometimes we need to look at things through the eyes of misogyny. Sometimes we need to look at things through the eyes of misogynoir. Sometimes we need to look at things through the eyes of sexual orientation or gender identity or homophobia or fat phobia. There's so many lenses that we can use to look at an issue that broadens the conversation, so that we could try to see as full of a picture as possible. And so I'm talking to you about the lens of his romantic relationship with his woman. But if we apply the lens of social justice to the words that he's using, The system of white inhumanity at some point has to do exactly what Tyrese did and say, I need to confess to the world that I am ashamed of my behavior. I need to confess to the world that I have injured my partners. I have injured my neighbors. I have injured my fellow humans. I have done them wrong. And I need to say that out loud. I need to own it. I need to say it out loud. And I need to open myself up to whatever scrutiny comes. Because the woman, we don't have her response. We don't know what she's going to say. She has the right to say, okay, babe, I forgive you. Let's keep it moving. Because she might be like me. In my relationships, in my romantic relationships, I don't consider infidelity to be a deal breaker. I don't. So she might be like that and say, hey, we can work through it. I understand the circumstances. I know where I was in the situation, like whatever. And she can also be like some people that are like, wait, what? You cheat after all we've been through, after all of your promises? This is what you do to me? Hey, I'm not dealing with it. It is over. I'm walking away. Whatever her response is, we don't know how she's going to respond. But in by him confessing, he opens himself up to her full range of options in how she wants to respond. So the system of white inhumanity absolutely needs to position itself to say that I am ashamed of myself for what I have been doing this entire time. And then the world, we get the opportunity to say how we get the opportunity to respond however we want. So we can accept the apology. We don't have to accept the apology. We can reject the apology. But either way, that does not mean that there's not a way that we can still stay connected as humans. I ain't got to be your best friend to be connected to you as a human. I ain't got to like everything that you do, but there is a way that we can coexist and we can be free together, but we have to have the hard conversations. And those hard conversations start with being accountable. Those hard conversations start with taking a good look at yourself and owning who you are and naming that for yourself, and then thinking about how who you are and how you show up impacts the next person, because that is what we are missing right now in this world, in all of the spaces that we navigate, whether we're talking about at home, whether we're talking about at church, whether we're talking about on our job, or we're talking about at school. Wherever we are finding ourselves in relationship with each other where we are not thinking about the impact of our behavior on the other person. We're too busy thinking about what we're going to gain, how we're going to benefit, what's going to be the come up for me, how we're going to continue to remain complicit so that we can benefit from the system, that we're not focused on how we are harming and injuring and traumatizing and dehumanizing other folks. I don't know why this came up in my mind because I hadn't planned to talk about it, but I generally wake up in the middle of the morning because I'm suffering from night sweats, and they are just absolutely awful. I cannot stand it. I got to do something. And so for those moments that sweat is pouring down my brow, I am just going through, just mindlessly scrolling through the reels on Facebook. And the other night I saw one where they were talking about Walmart being complicit with the system of ICE in allowing them to come in and basically just capture those people that have been named and labeled as immigrants. And so you see on this reel, you see these immigrants in their workplace being tased by ICE with the permission of their employers. And so I'm like, this is just absolute ridiculousness that we are witnessing, and we have got to get to the point that we are not afraid to hold everybody, anybody, all the bodies who are responsible for this. We have to hold them accountable, which means we have to be willing to raise up. The system itself absolutely needs to say that it should be ashamed, but I'm not waiting on the system to do that. I'm not expecting the system to do that, but we ought to be ashamed of the system because we are the people and we have a voice. The power really rests with the people. I know we have a government that makes us feel like the government is in charge, that we have to do what they say, that the politicians are in charge because they are the ones that have been voted in. But that is not true. That is the false narrative that they give to keep us silent while we have to wait on the next election cycle before something can be done. No, we can act right now. We can raise up as the people and say, I demand that we do something different. Now, I know that there have been protests to that thinking about that, to that end, the No Kings protest that happened not too long ago, I'm aware that it happened all over the country. I'm aware that there were several people who participated, but I'm also aware that I didn't hear no demands. Like, just to, we don't want no kings. Like, that's the demand. Like, what is it? So we have to have an agenda. We have to be strategic. We have to have strategies in place that are going to help us move forward. And that's usually what's missing in the conversation. But I was feeling sad last week. I mean, almost to the point where it may even be more accurate to say that I was experiencing a little bit of depression. And I did not know why. I just know I just felt myself kind of sinking. And I started to think, like, what's going on in my life? I know, and I'm self-aware enough to know how to interrogate myself and to begin to think about, just sit with myself and ask myself some questions like, what are you feeling? What's going on? What are you thinking? What are you missing? How are you? What emotions are bubbling up for you? Like, just asking myself these questions. And at first, I really couldn't name what it was that was making me so sad, but and probably because it was also wrapped up in Black joy, because I mentioned on Tuesday that there is one of my old parishioners has come back into my life, and she's in her 90s, and she just brings me so much joy, but she also sends me on this emotional roller coaster because being with her reminds me so much of being with my mom. And so in the midst of all of this joy that I was feeling for being with Miss Garner, I was also beginning to feel on a much heavier scale the loss of my mom. And so that's where the sadness was coming in. And as I continued to sit with it, I realized that the anniversary of her death is this Saturday. I'm like, oh my goodness, it makes perfect sense for me to be feeling this way, this sadness, this heaviness. So I'm not going to do anything about it. Like right now, I am going to sit with myself. I'm going to sit with the sadness because I don't think we do that enough. I have had more than one spirited discussion about people who are always talking about, well, look on the bright side, or think about this, or the Lord that. And I tell them all the time, I do not want you to try to make me smile. I do not want you to try to make me laugh. I am feeling sad. It is a valid emotion. My feelings are valid, and I want to honor them and celebrate them. So I'm going to sit with them. Now, I'm not going to stay with them. I'm not going to be sad forever. I'm going to move through it. But I owe it to myself as a human who has these emotions to allow myself the space to sit with them. And so I had a friend who called and was like, girl, where you at? Well, first of all, it was the holiday. And some people forget that I do not celebrate holidays. And so they're like, where you at? I guess they were getting together for something, and I told her that I was sitting at home, and she wanted to come over, and I told her no, I didn't want her to come over because I was feeling sad, and I just wanted to sit with the sadness. Because most people, when they come over, that's what they want to do. They want to fill the space with talking. They want to try to make you feel better, and I did not want that at all. And so I was like, no. I'm right here and I'm going to stay in this place. So as I was in that place, being sad, I turned on the TV and I just decided to watch like whatever. And so I found myself watching all kinds of reality shows, whether they are documentaries, whether they are makeup shows. I was watching Glow Up. They were it's 3 seasons of looking for the next makeup star. I watched Martha, the documentary about Martha Stewart, because I really was trying to figure out how we got to Snoop. Like, how did Martha and Snoop get in a relationship with each other? Like, I've been trying to figure that out for the longest. And so I was really glad that I watched the documentary because at the end, they tell the story of how she and Snoop got together. So I was glad that I watched that. I also watched a documentary about Rob Ford. Rob Ford used to be the mayor of Toronto, and he thought he could do whatever he wanted to do. And that's exactly what he was doing. And then people would rally around him in his ridiculousness, much of like what we see happening with our administration and the people, our administration locally, our governor, as well as our administration federally, administrations across the country where we have other mayors and governors who are falling in line with this presidential administration, like it was all of that. And so I was glad to see that. I also watched $1 Million Secret, which is about people who gather in this space and somebody has $1 million. And the goal of the reality show is to figure out, either you got to figure out who it is that has $1 million so that you can vote them off so that the $1 million can move to the next person, hopefully you, or you have the $1 million and you've got to figure out how to navigate and be deceptive and cunning and conniving enough to hold on to your $1 million. And so I watched that. I thought that was great. I also watched The Ultimatum, the queer love version. So somebody just two people in a relationship, and one of them is ready to get married and the other one is not. And the person who's ready to get married issues the ultimatum: either you gonna marry me or we gonna move on. And there's this experiment that happens through this reality show that helps them make a decision about whether or not they're gonna do that. So I'm watching all of these shows, but then I end up watching the trials of Daryl Hunt. That's where I end up. I'm watching all of this because I'm sad for days, and so I'm watching all of this. And the trials of Daryl Hunt are about a Black man who was wrongfully convicted back in South Carolina in 1984. There's so much overwhelming evidence to prove that this man is innocent, and yet he is found guilty. That is not an unfamiliar story in our country at all. But this happens to him, and he fights and fights and fights. And he goes up against every system he could possibly go: the system of appeals, the system of the Supreme Court, like all of this he goes up against. And for 19 and a half years, he is unable to secure his freedom because the system just refuses to do what Tyrese did. The system refuses to acknowledge their own wrongdoing. The system refuses to realize its shame and name its shame. The system refuses to say, I know that I've wronged you, and to say that publicly by admitting to this man, Daryl Hunt, and his family that they've done this to him. Like it goes on and on for 19 and a half years. After the 19 and a half years, when Daryl Hunt is finally exonerated, he goes on to become a person who does activism around these issues. So he's going across the country and he's talking about the need for criminal injustice reform. He's talking about the need for how to care for people who are incarcerated. He's talking about all of the issues that he's faced. He has now made them. He's now working on the cause for change, the cause for justice. He's fighting with his life. And then we get the news that he commits suicide. And I really had to just take a moment and sit with that, because they don't say that in the documentary. That's the Trials of Daryl Hunt. It's on Prime, if you have Prime Video. They don't say that in there, but because this is just how I am, how my mind works, when something intrigues me, I want to do the research. I want to look it up. I want to see for myself. I want to read all the articles. I want to watch all the interviews. I want to learn about their family. I want to know the children's names. That's just who I am. And so I started doing the research, and it was during the research, as I was doing the research during that process, that I learned that he committed suicide. And immediately I began to think about people who are in the Christian church that I know who have this strong feeling about what it means to commit suicide, that is anathema, that means that you are going to hell. Like, that's the way we tell the story of Judas, even though I've never seen where the Bible says that Judas went to hell. I know that we talk about the language around it makes it seem like he was so wrong. The language around it shames him for his betrayal of the man that is named Jesus, who is what they call the Christ. That I know that the language around it suggests that, but if we, there's much we can talk about. I don't want to get caught up in that, but so I know that there's strong feelings around Judas and him going to hell because of suicide. And so now, when we have people who take their lives, so many families won't even name it. Like they pretend that something else happened. They'll make up some other cause of death for the person because they don't want the world to know that the person committed suicide, because they don't want the world to judge the person, nor do they want to be judged because they don't want anybody to think that it must have been some sign that they missed. It must have been some teaching in their family. It must have been something that they did that aided and abetted the person in committing suicide. So all of these things that we do to hide the fact that somebody commits suicide, rather than thinking about it like I do, I personally believe that suicide is the ultimate act of liberation. It's the ultimate act of freedom, because it means that the person has decided that I am the one who has control over my body. I am the one who has the final say. I am the one who gets to make the decision. And it's interesting to me because I was just talking to a friend about this not too long ago, where she had a family member who was at the hospital, and the family member had decided, like, I basically don't want to live anymore. And she was my friend was upset, like, how dare she do this to me? And I said, and this is a Black woman, and the Black woman who was deciding that she was tired of living. And I said to I said to her, I'm pretty sure I said it to her, but I was thinking it to myself before I said it to her, that in this world, as a Black person in particular, you never, ever, ever are in control of your body. From the time we are born, we are surveilled, we are conditioned, we are programmed to do and to be and to act in the ways that somebody else wants us to. The minute that we even think that we're going to do something for ourselves, our lives get turned over, upside down, and many of us succumb to the pressure of it all because we have to survive. No judgment at all, but we just want to survive. And if that means I got to exist in this system, then whatever it takes to survive, because I have children to care for, I have a spouse to love, I've got so many reasons why. And so for me to finally say I'm tired of this world and you don't get to have the last say over me, I decide that I think is freedom, and that I think is liberation, and that I believe is worthy of us honoring. And I honored it with my mother, and I am not ashamed to say this. And I do not feel that there's anything wrong with my mother finally deciding for herself that she didn't want to endure dialysis, not another day. She didn't want to take the 12 or I can't even remember how many. I think it was about 12 to 15 pills that she had to take every single morning. She simply got tired and said, I don't want to. And I said to her, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. If your body says stop, then we're going to stop. And that's what we did. And of course, we had the conversation around, now, if you stop going to dialysis, this is what it means. Are you aware of that? She was aware of that. Okay, well, if that's what let's call hospice. And it took us 2 times. Don't get me wrong. Like the first time she was like, let's do it. And then hospice came over. She was like, no. I changed my mind. I ain't ready. I was like, okay, that's fine. And so when I think about Daryl Hunt, that's how I feel about him. If he decides that he wanted to commit suicide, who are we to judge him? And then how dare we condemn him to hell for committing suicide, for taking control of his body, especially after what he has endured. And that's where I feel like the setup comes in. So here this Black man is, who's already born into a setup. It is by design that most Black men, I don't remember the statistic right off the bat. Not about Black men. I can think about Black women. 1 in 4 Black women are going to have some experience with an incarcerated family member. I know that about Black women. I can't think of the statistic about Black men. If anybody knows it, call me and let me know. 501-433-0088. But statistically speaking, by design, Black men are going to find themselves entangled in the criminal injustice system. And then the criminal injustice system, because of your entanglement, then decides that you are not worthy of housing, you are not worthy of employment, you are not worthy of nutritional assistance, you're not worthy of the basic needs that that you should be afforded as a human, and is that you're not worthy of it. And so you get out of the criminal injustice system in terms of you are no longer incarcerated behind those prison walls, only to find yourself incarcerated in all of these systems on the outside. And then many of them end up going back because, I mean, what else am I going to do except commit a crime in order for me to feed my family, in order for me to pay a bill, in order for me to secure some transportation? Like, what else do you expect me to do? So you're set up to get entangled jailed, and then you're set up for recidivism, and then you're set up for the confinement. And so you'll get in prison, and then in prison, you find yourself in solitary confinement, which is not, which is absolutely cruel and unusual punishment. And some people find themselves in solitary confinement for prolonged periods of time, which diminish their mental capacity. So you're being set up, even if you do end up getting out, you get out and you are now, no, you're just not even, you're just a fragment of yourself. Like people that love you and who have known you don't even recognize you anymore because of the deficiencies in your cognitive abilities as it relates to, as a result of having been incarcerated. And so here you like, so what is your life now? And when you finally get out, what is your life? And then even though Daryl Hunt is having this wonderful time speaking in front of people, like people are calling on him from every corner of the country to have these conversations, to help with the reform. They're doing all of that, but yet they are not thinking about what retelling that story, what reliving that trauma is doing to his body. And of course, we can imagine as a Black man that he's not going to say, hey, y'all, I need to stop because this is taking a toll on me. We do not teach the world, period. We absolutely do not teach Black folks, and we certainly do not teach Black men how to be vulnerable. And it's with themselves, first of all, but definitely not in public, to be able to say, this is hard for me. This is wearing me out. Like this is affecting my mind. This is changing my thought process. So all of this he's doing because in his mind, he's like, I want to make sure that my life mattered to somebody, because these 19 and a half years, he says something to this effect in the documentary that like, I don't feel safe. Like, does anybody see me? Does anybody recognize me as human in this space? It got to one point that he kept hearing so many no's that the last time his lawyers were in the room with him and told him that the answer was no from the Supreme Court or the appellate court, whoever it was, he just got up and walked out. He didn't say anything. He just got up and walked out. And when they finally reached him on the phone, he said, I don't feel anything. I'm so used to it now. I don't feel it. There wasn't anything for me to say. What is it that you want me to say? And so here this man is being, even though inside he's being torn down, outside he's being pulled in all of these different directions. No one is sitting down and saying, hey, let's sit with these feelings. Hey, let's be sad together. Hey, let's think about the trauma that you endured. Hey, let's just close the door on everything. Let's just shut down all the noise. Let's just be together. I know I used to do that when I was a pastor, and I would have people in the hospital, and I would go to visit them, and they would be patients in the hospital. These are my parishioners, and they would be patients. And when I got there, they're the ones that are sick. I'm the one coming to see about them, and they would feel the need to entertain me. Now they're sick in their body, and they feel like, well, the pastor that showed up, oh my goodness, let me talk to her. Let me see if she's okay. Let me ask her questions. And I would have to say, oh no, they learned me. I was there 5 years, so they learned me over the years. But it took me a minute to get them to see that we don't have to talk. You don't owe me any conversation. You don't owe me any jokes. You don't owe me trying to make me feel okay. You don't owe me even a conversation. I will sit with you in the silence of this moment. I will sit with you. I will watch over you while you sleep. I will pray over your head when you don't even know that I'm praying, because now you are asleep. I will sing a song in the room while you are gone to take your test, while we wait on you. Like the nurses, they came to know, like, you don't owe me anything while you are sick. So here this man is, he's endured all this trauma, and the world wants him to come and help them figure out reform. And he decides to commit suicide. And now we're going to judge him and condemn him to hell. How dare you take your life? Now, this world has treated your life like it is nothing, have devalued you at every turn, dehumanized you every chance they get. And then when you dare decide to take advantage of your power, Now you're going to hell. And so that made me think about how how this system sets us up to live a life that is just, the word that came to mind was fruitless, but I'm not sure that's the word that I want to use. But we're not happy. Like we're not joyful. Like our lives are not filled with joy because there's so many other things that are tugging at us, that are making us just not take inventory of ourselves. We do not put ourselves first. So we have religion that sends this message. Hotep, I see you. Religion that sends this message that we're not allowed to have control over our bodies because only God can do with our bodies what God will. And then we have this system of health care that wants to tell us that if you don't weigh, I don't know what the weight is, 125 pounds, then your body is not worthy of love and affection, of passion. Yeah. So Lo says that's that theological brainwashing. Absolutely. And so I'm talking about the theological brainwashing from religion. I'm talking about the brainwashing that comes from our healthcare system. Then we have women in this sexist society. Because we are women, then we are to be relegated to the second position. Even not only even if we get the second position, we should not be the first in leadership because we are women, and it's supposed to be the man that's supposed to lead us. And so we have that system of sexist brainwashing, and then we have the brainwashing of sexual orientation that does not allow us to have conversations about sexuality being a spectrum. None of us are all the way straight or all the way gay. All of us fall on the spectrum somewhere, and we don't talk about, because of that, talk about that kind of the facts around that, because of the brainwashing around sexuality. And then we have the brainwashing around gender identity. We have people who are of trans experience now, and the world is acting like this is our first time ever hearing of such. Somebody done made this up. We say the white people done made it up. We say gay people done made it up. We say that this is some phenomenon that we're not familiar with, and now look at it, it's taking over our country. But that's not the truth of the matter. People of trans experience have been with us since the beginning. You got them in the Bible. Oh my goodness. So this brainwashing that we have around gender identity. And then we have the brainwashing around socioeconomic status. So we treat poor people. First of all, we create poor people, and then we treat them bad because they poor. The brainwashing around, it's your fault that you are poor, and because you are poor, you should not have any access to anything that's leisurely. So you shouldn't even have access to a drink that's got sugar in it because you're poor. You shouldn't have access to the nail shop because you're poor. You shouldn't have access to a pet because you're poor. You shouldn't have access to anything that feels good because you are poor. So the brainwashing around what it means to be poor. And then when we talk about the setup for people who are underemployed, you have so many people who have so many gifts and talents and graces, but because of their race or because of their gender or because of their socioeconomic status, they are not afforded the opportunities to be gainfully employed in a way that allows them to be sustainable. So we're set up to live in all of these different aspects in a way that does not bring joy to our world. And then when we think about physical brainwashing, those of us who are able-bodied, then when we see somebody who's differently able, somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody who uses uses braces, or somebody who is deaf or blind, then we look at them like, oh, poor them. They're not really the right kind of human. Because when you think about the Nazis, and even when you think about these immigrants, like, who is it that you're trying to get rid of? You're trying to get rid of people who are differently abled because you don't consider them to be the full expression of divinity. Like, so this is a brainwashing that we have around folks who are differently abled and folks who are neurodiverse. So people who have brain health issues, we take advantage of that status, and we make, they're so vulnerable, like they can't possibly function like the rest of us, when absolutely they can. They just do it through a different lens. We talk about the brainwashing around people people who are single. And we talk about when we find out only when it's a woman, when we say that she is a mother, we'll say she's a single mother. I don't really hear a lot of times when we're talking about a man, they don't talk about whether or not he's married with children. Like single with children. We don't usually talk about that. I'm sure somebody has said it before that this is a single father, but most of the time we don't. But when it's someone, we want you to know that she's single and she's a mother, because there's some kind of identity we want you to, some kind of feeling that we want to evoke by the fact that here she is, she's not married, but look, she has children. And so the brainwashing around, if I'm single, then I'm not complete. And if I'm not complete, then it means I don't have a joyful life. I got to get me a husband. I got to get me a spouse in order for me to live the abundant life. That's a brainwashing. And even when we think about love, because those of us who fall into that trap of believing that I've got to have somebody, I got to be in relationship with anybody, then we end up having just a piece of love. Who is actually a song by Guy. Isn't that Guy? You can have a piece of my love. And he actually says dumb B after that. But anyway, so we get caught up in this. So now we're in relationships that are unhealthy. But as long as I'm in relationship, then so that's a brainwashing around love. So all of these systems are brainwashing us, programming us, conditioning us to do the one thing that we ought to do, to keep us from doing the only thing that's necessary, which is centering ourselves. I don't care what the health system says about the size of my body. I don't care what religion says about suicide. I don't care what sexism says about the fact that I am a woman. Who do I know myself to be? That's how I'm going to live in the world, and that's how I'm going to show up in the world, and that's how I'm going to respond to people in the world based on who I know I should be as a human. It ain't about me being a Christian. We had a couple in here not too long ago, and they said I was challenging them on the fact that they didn't want their blackness to show up in the space. And I think it was the woman, the wife, I don't remember. I think it was the wife. She said, well, I'm a Christian first. I'm like, so actually, ma'am, and we talked about this off the air. Actually, when you walk into a room, don't nobody see Christian. And so the world is not responding to you as Christian. The world responds to you as Black. The world responds to you as woman. The world responds to you as able-bodied. That's what the world is responding to, what they see as what they perceive themselves to see. That's how you're being responded to. And so all of these systems that are created to not allow us to center ourselves in who we are, then they keep us from feeling joy. They keep us from realizing joy. They keep us from even being able to recognize joy in our presence. And so they diminish our human capacity on the outside, out here. So imagine what it's like being incarcerated. So Daryl Hunt is incarcerated and he's being treated less than human. And I really believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he converts to Muslim, to Islam when he's on the inside, if I'm not mistaken. So Lowe says that's a lack of education of self. Yeah, we don't do a lot of educating around who we are. I was talking to a community member just last night, and I was actually lamenting over the fact that at my life's experience, I didn't grow up in Black space. I think it was when I was listening to I.J. Roughton at Pyramid, and she talked about how she knew she was the best because she was surrounded by the best. Like her parents told her she was the best. They were surrounded. They had the best. The doctors were in the neighborhood. The lawyers were in the neighborhood. The caregivers were in the neighborhood. The cooks were in the neighborhood. Like everybody that modeled what it means to be excellent looked like her and lived around her and fed into her and poured into her, so that she did not have a problem embracing when the time came, when she was able to receive the excellence that she held in her body the entire time. Like she was able to do that because she had all of this around her. I was like, I did not grow up like that. I've had to be on this journey towards myself, and that is what we all have to do. I don't want to say all of us, but many of us have to go on, have to realize I gotta find myself. I gotta figure this out, because the world absolutely does not show it to me. The world absolutely does not inform me, and it definitely doesn't happen in the public school system. It should be happening in church, but please don't get me started on church right now. I want to stay right here with Daryl Hunt converting to Islam in when he's incarcerated, because what I also wanted to do was look up the numbers. Well, I don't want to say I was looking up the numbers. I wanted to hear the stories. I'm more of a qualitative person than I am quantitative. So the numbers are good for those of you who need to hear. It's 95%, but I don't have the numbers. I just know the stories. And so I started looking up how many people, I want to know how often is it that a person converts to Islam once they are incarcerated. And there was story after story after story that I was reading about people who, not until they are incarcerated, convert from Christianity to Islam. And so I'm trying to figure out, what is it about Islam that becomes attractive when you are incarcerated? And so the stories, only the stories that I read, I'm sure that there are other stories that contradict what I'm saying, that challenge what I'm saying, and I am open to that conversation at 501-433-0088. But they talked about when the people who are Christian, and in particular these were stories from men, from Black men, that once they are incarcerated and they are introduced to the Islamic faith, they're introduced to what it means to be Muslim, there's a sense of community that is offered, that they embrace, that they did not feel on the outside. There's a sense of discipline that goes along with the religion. Well, I don't know if it's called a religion, but I'm assuming that it's some sect of a religion So Hotep says, in my opinion, you're trading one theological master for another. So when you convert from from Christianity to Islam, you are trading one theological master for another. And that may be true for some folks, but that's not the sense that I got when they talked about the community that is offered. They talk about the discipline and how many times that you're going to pray. They talk about how the food that you're going to eat. And because in this world that we're living in right now, when we talk about brain health issues, when we talk about the issues of discipline in the classroom with the children, one of the things that we keep leaving out of the equation is the food that the children are eating that's affecting their mind. And the food that all of us, if you're eating food in the United States that you are not growing yourself, if you are eating food that you are not growing yourself, it is ultra processed and it is affecting your brain. It is changing the chemicals in your brain. It is affecting your body on multiple levels. And so for them to now have this diet that says, wait a minute, we're going to do better. I'm not saying they get rid of all the processed foods, because again, they're in prison, so they don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables and organic things and all of that. But what was something? But they're doing better. They're eating better than, the diet is better than our diet, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying they're eating better than us. And then they're rejecting, another part of the conversation is the rejection of the religion of the oppressors. Even if it is a religion, when you think about Christianity is rooted and grounded in oppression. The Ku Klux Klansmen, one of the criterion for them to be Ku Klux Klansmen was to be a Christian. When we think about Bloody Sunday, there were plenty of Sundays that people would come out of church. They would leave out of church and they would lynch Black folk. They would leave the church and lynch Black folks. The burning of the cross as a symbol to say that this is God saying, God ordaining us, treating you this way. So now we, in turn, as Black folks, serve this same master. And so the rejection of that, to say, if I'm going to have a religion, it's certainly not going to be the religion of the one who thinks that who has been oppressing me. And then this emphasis in the Islamic faith on social justice and equality, like there's an emphasis on that. A lot of times for me, in my experience with Christianity, the emphasis is on how can you make sure you check all the boxes so you can get to heaven. Like, it's not about social justice. I'm not even thinking about all that. I'm thinking about me in my house, what I'm going to do. Is God pleased with me? Can I keep the devil off my track? Like, all of that is my main concern so that I can get to heaven. And then one of the things that I really felt was profound in some of the stories, that was kind of a recurring theme, if you read it carefully enough, was that Islam, these are the stories of other people, help them to see themselves as human. Like now I can see myself the way that I ought to be seen through the eyes of something bigger than I am. Now I can. And so when I think about chess master Tony Davis, he talks a lot about how it's not until you are incarcerated that many of our children learn the game of chess. And we talk about chess. Chess is a thinking person's game. It helps you think through. It helps you think ahead. It helps you think about like, okay, if I do this step and then this step, what's gonna happen? Like, what's the results? What's the impact? Like, you really have to take time and sit with your actions and your behavior, and that's a thinking. That's what we do. But that's offered to folks after they are incarcerated. Like, what if that was something that was incorporated, that kind of decision making process? What if it happened before you are incarcerated? So, what if this Christianity, this way of us thinking, what if we were, if it was challenged before we get entangled with the criminal and justice system, so that we are having this community, we're having this discipline. Oh, I left out the reflection, that we are able to reflect on our lives and think about who we are. Like, that's part of their story about what it means to embrace Islam. Then what? That was just striking to me, that it's only when I'm now incarcerated that I begin to think about a religion that could free me, as opposed to the religion that oppresses me. And so I felt like the setup is that we have all of these systems working to reduce our bodies to nothing, so that they can be controlled by everybody else. And then we get into prison, and then we're offered an opportunity to think about freedom and liberation through different eyes. So what if we, who are now on the outside, what if we say, let's do that now? And I am not suggesting at all that anybody convert to Islam. I'm not suggesting that, because I don't think we need religion, period. The system of religion, I don't think we need it, period. Christianity, Islam, I don't think we need it, period. What I'm suggesting is that if we rallied around each other as community, if we lived lives of discipline where we decided that we're not going to harm another human, well, we shouldn't harm anybody in creation. I'm just talking about humans right now, because I'm usually more focused on humans than I am animals. I'm just going to be honest about that. If we decide there's not going to be any violence in our home, I'm not going to beat my children. I'm not going to beat my spouse. I'm not going to beat anybody. Like, that's just not, we are not going to be violent in our home. And not just with our hands and our bodies. We're not going to be violent in our speech. I'm not going to call you out of your name. I'm not going to yell at you and scream at you like you're nobody. Like, we're not going to do that. So we have this sense of discipline. If we take the time to reflect on who we are and who we should be and how we want to show up in the world, take the time to sit with our feelings and our emotions. If we take the time to reject the system of our oppressors, and we say, I'm not going to be complicit in the systems that are set up to benefit white folks. Why would I want to do that? If we take the time to focus on social justice, to say, what does it mean for me to fight for every single person? And by fighting for every single person, the best thing I can do is to fight for the most vulnerable, which would be the Black person in our midst. If I fight to lift up the Black person so that we are no longer bound by these systems, then that's going to lift everybody up. And what if we said, let's recover humanity? What if we took all of those issues that were brought up in these stories of people who have converted, we just focused on the issues, wouldn't we be living in a better place? So here's Lo says, but the book of Leviticus contains a lot of dietary laws. I'm sorry, you probably said that a few minutes ago when I was talking about, I don't know what you're saying. I'm so sorry. I don't know what you're saying. But the book of Leviticus contains a lot of dietary laws. Yes, the book of Leviticus does contain a lot of dietary laws that we do not follow. I'm one of the ones that don't follow them because I am a pescatarian. What does that mean? That means I would rather eat seafood than any other thing. Give me some crab is my favorite. Oh my goodness, crab is my favorite. And then I like shrimp. I'm really not keen on lobster. I mean, I'll eat it, but I'm not, most people are like, ooh, I feel like I don't know, I feel like I'm about it because I can order lobster. I don't feel like that at all. Like, it's not my favorite. And I'm not really like mussels and clams. Like, I don't know. Those are not my favorites either. And I definitely don't want any on it. I don't want any oysters. I've eaten them. Yes, I've eaten them raw. I've eaten them fried. I've eaten them char grilled, but they are just not my favorite. So yeah. So there is the Leviticus says you're not supposed to eat shellfish. Leviticus says the Bible says you shouldn't have tattoos. I got how many tattoos do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got four. Technically, I've got five because one of them I had done and added some stuff to it, so I had to go under the needle again. So there's so much that the Bible says, but Leviticus also says something to the effect about you shouldn't lie with a woman the way lie with a man the way you lie with a woman or something like that. Now we'll lift that up. Now we want people to abide by that, but if you tell me I can't have no shrimp, the devil is a lie. So that's why I'm saying we should. I don't even think that we should even be, looking to the Bible for help with those kinds of things. As a community, as humans, in the spirit of Salbona, that spirit of oneness, it should not be hard for us if we just focus on the oneness of our humanity. Let go of the sexism, racism, let go of the Christianity or the Islamic, let go of all of that and just focus on what it means to be human, to honor you as a human. What would that mean if we just focused on that? Then the world would be a better place. We stop killing folks because that's not human. I don't want to say that's not human. That doesn't honor humanity. That doesn't help us recover our humanity. And that's what I think we should do. So, Daryl Hunt, I am grateful for you. I want to just celebrate your life. I want to honor your decisions. I want to hold your family. I want to continue to support your work that you have left for us to carry on in the space of criminal injustice reform. I really, really encourage you all, if you have not seen it, to watch the mini trials, or I don't think it's the mini trials, the trials of Daryl Hunt. You can find it on Prime Video. Those of you who have it, if you need a password, call me at 228-236-7440. You can get in on my account. I ain't studying them people. You can get in on my account. Thank you so much for joining us for the workplace right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. You've got, let's see, Monday Down with Debt happens from 4 to 5 p.m. with Toney and Neil. And then on Tuesday mornings, you've got Community Voices right here with me, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise, and then also the Pastor Toney Orr. And then on Wednesday, you've got Arkansas Talks with Pat Ward. Wait a minute. On Sunday, you got Brother Wayne. I think that's real early in the morning. Then on Saturday, you got Wendell Griffin. I think that's at 9 o'clock. Yeah, that's 9 o'clock in the morning. Listen, what am I saying? Don't touch the dial. You want to stay right here to hear all that we have to offer, because we are the voice of the people working just for you. And we'll see you again soon.